being born a African American in this country, it's not like I couldn't see it day to day. But as far as books, really the first one I remember is The Spook Who Sat by the Door, which is by Sam Greenlee. It's a book that it's a satire that was considered so radical at the time that he couldn't get it published in the United States. He had to go to Europe, and finally, a publisher in London published the book, and it was actually a an award winner at that point. And since something starts making money, that's when the states will bring it back here. The book was published in '69. I actually became aware of it when the movie came out in '73. The movie had a very short shelf life. They said, wait a minute, we can't show this. But it's a satire, as I said, and it skews pretty much everyone in a funny way. But the establishment, the white establishment, the black bourgeoisie, even the protagonist himself. The idea is that what happens when a black man is hired as a token for a government organization, in this case, the CIA. There were times when I kind of felt like that when I was in the Navy, especially after I became an officer. But it actually very much reflected the times as far as what was going on in the world, as far as black militancy and how government organizations work. Uh, so, and it turns out that this man who was lucky to be picked and was trained by the CIA, he then becomes supposedly disillusioned and quits and goes and starts training freedom fighters in Chicago. But it turns out that that was his plan the entire time. He's been playing all of these different roles. So he was actually an undercover agent when he was with the CIA. And you can imagine the different storylines that can come from that. But as I said, it skewers pretty much everyone. And that was the book that once I read it, after I stopped laughing, I was like, wow, this is really touching on quite a few things that are going on in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of them are still going on in the world.
Andre, I know it's hard to talk about this stuff, but would you talk just a few minutes about how it affected you in your own life or as a Navy officer? Just a little bit. Don't worry, you don't have to get radical, but I just wanted
Mm.
to hear a little more about how it affected you personally. Would you do that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. How it affected me personally, as I first read it when I was a teenager. So, and that was back when, unfortunately, black exploitation movies were a thing, and you went to the movies because black people were in it, but that's all they were doing was killing white people and spouting ridiculous stuff. But this book was definitely a highlight in that, again, I could see what was going on around me through new eyes, through this Sam Greenlee's eyes. Once I became an adult and then enlisted in the Navy, uh, didn't really think about it again, as I said, until I got commissioned as an officer. Initially, and the Navy is always, they go through phases of, well, we really need uh, to do something about our diversity. I remember back in the late 80s, statistically speaking, the Navy was way behind the other services as far as commissioning uh, different people of color. Um, and when I was first commissioned, I mean, my first ship, I looked like a little United Nations. I mean, we had Filipinos, we had Mexican Americans, we had African Americans, we had Caucasians, we had everybody. But by the time I became a lieutenant and started going to these meetings, there were fewer and fewer of us. And the more senior I became, the less there were. And their time came where I was the only one in there. And that's really made me think back to the book, and I think about some of the ways that I was treated, at those meetings as though, yeah, you're the token guy. You really don't need to say anything. We don't want to hear what you have to say. And yeah, I can understand how this guy could, you know, take what he's learned and turn it around. So that's what was my personal feelings about the book. Actually, it's dated because of the language he used, the slang of the time, because he was writing it for the young African Americans at the time. So the language dates it, but what's going on is, again, a lot of it is still happening. The uh, the character that he undertakes when he starts, basically they go to war with the establishment, is he calls himself Uncle Tom, which of course is a play on Uncle Tom. But I mean, he describes many of the American bourgeoisie who, in his view, were like that. And certainly in the Navy, I met some folks that were supposed, thought that they were assimilated to the point that they were no longer black or Mexican or Filipino. I mean, it was pretty amazing to watch. But folks are out there, and they fit in where they think they can. But they're a lot of them are willing to step on other folks to get to where they think they want to go. I don't want to get into
Andre. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. That was really terrific. It's going to be great.